Imagine this. You wake up, but something feels wrong. The sun isn't rising. The air is eerily still. No wind, no movement. Then, the ground beneath you begins to shake violently, and suddenly it hits you. Earth has stopped spinning. Sounds like science fiction. Well, buckle up. Because if this ever happened, the consequences would be so catastrophic. They'd make every apocalypse movie look like a bedtime story. And here's the scariest part. Scientists say it's not entirely impossible. So what happens next? Would we have any chance of survival? Or would this be the end of the world as we know it? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at our planet forever. First, let's talk momentum. Right now, Earth is spinning at about 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. If it suddenly stopped, everything on its surface, including you, would still be moving at that speed. What does that mean? It means buildings, cars, trees, entire oceans would be flung forward at supersonic speeds. Ever been on a roller coaster that stopped too fast? Now imagine that, but with skyscrapers and oceans flying past you. The sheer force would be enough to flatten everything in its path. And that's just the beginning. Because next, the atmosphere fights back. Right now, our atmosphere is moving with the Earth's rotation. But if the planet suddenly stopped, the air would keep rushing at speeds beyond anything we've ever experienced. We're talking hurricane-force winds stronger than nuclear explosions, tearing across continents, wiping out everything in their path. And you thought Monday mornings were rough. Try waking up to this. Within minutes, entire cities would be reduced to rubble. And even if you somehow survived the initial chaos, the worst is still coming. Without rotation, Earth would have a new and terrifying reality. One side facing the sun forever, the other trapped in permanent night. On the sunlit side, temperatures would soar high enough to boil lakes and melt cities. Crops would burn, water would evaporate, and entire regions would turn into unlivable deserts. Meanwhile, the dark side, a frozen wasteland colder than Antarctica, where oxygen itself could turn into ice. And the worst part, the atmosphere would start drifting toward the cold side, meaning oxygen would disappear from the sunlit regions. Survival nearly impossible. But it gets worse. Without rotation, Earth's magnetic field, the invisible shield protecting us from deadly cosmic radiation, would collapse. And that means radiation storms. Without protection, solar radiation would fry electronics, mutate DNA, and make life nearly impossible on the surface. At this point, survival would mean going deep underground, living like moles in tunnels to escape the unlivable conditions above. But is that really a life worth living? So here's the big question. Could we fix it? Theoretically, yes. Some scientists believe we could use gigantic thrusters or gravity manipulation to slowly restart the planet's spin. But here's the catch. It would take millions of years to restore Earth to normal. And humanity, we don't have that kind of time. So, unless we found a way to escape, to colonize another planet, this would be the end of civilization as we know it. But here's the good news. Earth is still spinning, and as long as it does, we have everything we need to thrive. So maybe, just maybe, we should start appreciating this delicate balance a little more. But wait, what if Earth didn't stop all at once? What if, instead of an instant catastrophe, the planet gradually slowed down over years, maybe even centuries? Would we still be doomed? Well, the answer might surprise you. At first, we might not notice much. Days would get slightly longer, by just a few milliseconds every year. Sounds harmless, right? But over centuries, this effect would build up. Instead of 24-hour days, we'd have 48-hour days, then weeks-long days, and eventually, half a year of daylight and half a year of darkness. Think about what that means. On the sunlit side, plants would grow like never before, but only for a while. The relentless heat would eventually turn farmlands into barren deserts. The only crops that might survive would be deep underground or in climate-controlled domes. On the dark side, the cold would creep in slowly, freezing lakes, rivers, and entire continents solid. The oceans would start shifting, creating unpredictable tidal waves that could redesign coastlines forever. And humans, we'd migrate constantly, trying to live in the narrow twilight zone, the only habitable belt between burning hell and frozen wasteland. Cities would be built on wheels, constantly moving with the sun. Sounds like a sci-fi movie, right? But it's the only way we might survive. But here's the part we haven't talked about yet. Slowing Earth down wouldn't just affect the surface. It would tear apart the very structure of the planet itself. Right now, Earth's rotation helps keep its core molten, generating the magnetic field that protects us from deadly radiation. But if that rotation slows, the core would start freezing. The magnetic field would weaken, and that means solar radiation would slowly cook the planet, causing more cancer, more mutations, and even altering the DNA of future generations. And let's not forget earthquakes. Right now, Earth's rotation helps stabilize tectonic plates. But without that force, we'd see megaquakes capable of ripping entire continents apart. But for now, Earth is still spinning, and as long as it does, we have everything we need to survive. So maybe it's time we stop taking this fragile balance for granted. Because if Earth ever does stop, we won't be around to see what happens next. Stay amazed, and as always, keep wondering, what if?